She is an actress. The question where Audra is concerned is whether or not she could deal with soul as I sing it. But she's an actress.
Aretha Franklin spent her life commanding respect, but this time, she's taking it back from 7 people who never earned it. In a blunt, unexpected reveal, the Queen of Soul laid out the names of musicians she genuinely couldn't stand, with no smoothing of edges and no polite phrasing. These weren't small misunderstandings. They were long-standing tensions she carried quietly through decades of fame. Now, that silence is over, and her list is right here. Billy Joel. One of her most surprising fallouts came not from a rival, a critic, or a casual slight, but from an artist she genuinely admired. Billy Joel. Known for his virtuoso piano playing and storytelling lyrics, Joel had long been someone Aretha respected. When the opportunity arose to explore a joint concert, an ambitious melding of their piano-driven styles and iconic voices, she agreed, intrigued by the possibilities of a collaboration that promised to be historic. The first rehearsal, however, quickly revealed that admiration alone could not guarantee harmony. On paper, the pairing seemed perfect. 2 musical titans with a deep understanding of melody, rhythm, and phrasing. In reality, personalities clashed almost immediately. Billy, ever the affable showman, attempted to lighten the atmosphere with humor. At one point, he suggested with an easy smile that Aretha take a shot of whiskey to loosen up. What might have been a casual quip in another context felt, to Aretha, like an intrusion on her professionalism and personal boundaries. She did not drink, and the remark implied a lack of respect for the care and discipline she brought to her craft. Without hesitation, Aretha made a decision that would define the encounter. She closed her music binder with deliberate calm, packed her bag, and left the rehearsal space without a scene. There was no public confrontation, no dramatics, just a quiet assertion of principle. Days later, the much-anticipated collaboration was quietly shelved, the project disappearing without explanation from press releases or fan speculation. Behind closed doors, those who knew her recalled a succinct, cutting private assessment. His music is elegant. His mouth isn't. That line, brief yet precise, encapsulated Aretha's exacting standards. Talent and skill could inspire her, but respect was non-negotiable. Any attempt to undermine, belittle, or trivialize her dedication, no matter how lightly intended, could instantly end a professional relationship. In the years that followed, Aretha and Billy Joel never crossed paths again, and the brief promise of their collaboration became a legend of what could have been in music circles. Dionne Warwick. Some tensions in the music world linger quietly for years, smoldering beneath the surface until a seemingly small incident reignites them with full force. For Aretha Franklin, one such spark came in 2012 at the funeral of Whitney Houston, the beloved songstress whose untimely death had shaken the industry. The ceremony was a solemn, emotional gathering of friends, peers, and fans, and Aretha, herself grieving, had been scheduled to perform a tribute. But the pressures of the moment and her own physical health prevented her from taking the stage. That delicate, private decision became public fodder when Dionne Warwick, speaking to the press during the funeral coverage, casually remarked that Aretha had been slated to perform but hadn't appeared. On the surface, it might have seemed like a passing observation, but for Aretha, it was anything but trivial. The statement overlooked the very real struggles she was facing, both physical and emotional, and implied a level of irresponsibility or indifference that could not have been further from the truth. To Aretha, the moment had been sacred, a tribute to a friend, and Dionne's words had turned it into a talking point for the media, twisting grief into gossip. The remark sat quietly in the background for years, a subtle but persistent irritant. Aretha did not immediately respond, choosing instead to let the situation simmer, a hallmark of her measured, dignified approach to conflict. But by 2017, the simmering tension could no longer be contained. She addressed the issue head-on in a 5-page statement to the Associated Press, one of her rare public declarations on matters of personal grievance. The statement was measured, precise, and unmistakably firm. Aretha accused Dionne of spreading falsehoods and manufacturing drama during a moment that should have been about mourning and respect. She framed the incident not as a simple misunderstanding, but as a violation of trust, a breach of decorum in a space that demanded reverence. Her letter concluded with a sentence that left no room for ambiguity. Dionne knows what she did. There was no elaboration, no invitation for discussion or reconciliation, just the quiet, unyielding closing of a chapter that had long been cold, but never forgotten. For Aretha, this was not about personal vindictiveness. It was about protecting her integrity, her reputation, and the sanctity of moments reserved for music, memory, and mourning. Luther Vandross. Not all battles in Aretha Franklin's career happened under the spotlight. Some were waged behind the closed doors of recording studios, where precision met instinct, and egos clashed in the pursuit of musical perfection. One of the most notorious of these confrontations occurred in the early 1980s, when Clive Davis, then one of the most influential figures in the music industry, orchestrated a collaboration designed to propel Aretha into a spectacular comeback. He paired her with Luther Vandross, a rising star known for his meticulous approach to recording and his uncanny ability to craft flawless vocal arrangements. On paper, it was a match made in heaven. Luther's disciplined, note-perfect style, combined with Aretha's unmatched vocal power and raw emotionality. The reality, however, could not have been more different. From the very first week of sessions, tension simmered beneath the polished surface. Vandross, accustomed to working with singers who adhered strictly to his guidance, insisted on immaculate phrasing, perfect timing, and repeated takes until every nuance met his exacting standards. Aretha, by contrast, sang from instinct, from feeling, from a deeply internalized sense of rhythm and emotion that often defied technical conformity. Their approaches, both brilliant in their own right, collided with a friction that grew steadily with each session. The breaking point reportedly came during a late-night recording. Vandross, frustrated with what he perceived as excessive embellishment, allegedly leaned over and said, "You need to stop over-singing." The studio fell into a tense silence. Aretha, never one to be intimidated, stood up slowly, locking eyes with him. Her response was swift, cutting, and absolute. Nobody tells the Queen how to command a storm. Without another word, she walked out of the studio, leaving a stunned production team in her wake. Keith Richards. Creative disagreements had always been part of Aretha Franklin's life, but some moments cut deeper than others. One such instance occurred in 2007, when Keith Richards, the iconic guitarist of the Rolling Stones, made an offhand remark in a Rolling Stone interview that sent shockwaves through the music world. In his typically provocative style, Richards declared, "Soul died with Otis Redding. Aretha's around, but it's different." To many fans and observers, it sounded like classic Keith, blunt, irreverent, and designed to stir controversy. To Aretha, however, it was something far more personal, a dismissal of decades of labor, passion, and artistry. Aretha Franklin's career had been built on transforming the very definition of soul music. She had taken gospel roots, church choirs, and the struggles of Black America and turned them into an unparalleled voice that resonated across generations. To hear that legacy reduced to a footnote, delivered with casual arrogance, was a deep affront. In public, she responded with characteristic poise, offering a deceptively polite jab. "Some folks think loud guitars equal depth. Bless him." The statement, measured and gracious on the surface, barely concealed the intensity of her irritation. Privately, Aretha's fury was unmistakable. Colleagues recall that she immediately drew a line. No event featuring Keith Richards, no shared tributes, No collaboration under any banner connected to the Rolling Stones. His name, once casually mentioned, was now effectively banned from her professional orbit. It wasn't vindictiveness, it was protection of legacy. Aretha had spent a lifetime defending her space as the Queen of Soul, and any attempt to minimize or erase that contribution was unacceptable. She was not one to negotiate her significance, nor to let a glib comment undermine decades of dedication. The incident revealed much about her philosophy. Artistry without respect was meaningless. To Aretha, legacy was sacred, earned through hard work, relentless discipline, and emotional honesty in performance. Keith Richards' offhand remark, though perhaps intended as playful provocation, had crossed that boundary. From that moment forward, their worlds existed in parallel, never intersecting professionally. Tributes, galas, and honors that might have united them remained separate. Beyonce, what started as a shining moment of celebration at the 2008 Grammy Awards, quickly spiraled into an unspoken tension that would linger for years. Beyonce, radiant in her signature style, stepped to the microphone to honor the incomparable Tina Turner. With her characteristic poise and reverence, she called Turner the Queen, a title that elicited thunderous applause from the audience and widespread media acclaim. Cameras flashed, social media buzzed, and in that glittering moment, Beyoncé's tribute seemed flawless, a glamorous nod to a living legend. Yet behind the lights and applause, not everyone was pleased. Aretha Franklin, herself long celebrated as the undisputed Queen of Soul, reportedly bristled at the remark. For Aretha, the crown of Queen was not a casual metaphor. It was a hard-earned emblem of decades of struggle, artistry, and advocacy. From her earliest days singing in church choirs to the forefront of the civil rights movement, Aretha had spent a lifetime building a voice and presence that resonated far beyond the music charts. To hear that same title casually applied to another artist, even in praise of Tina Turner, felt to her like a diminishment of her own legacy. Within hours, Aretha issued a pointed statement to the press. She did not name Beyoncé directly, but the subtext was unmistakable. The statement called the remark careless and disrespectful, emphasizing the importance of recognizing the historical and cultural weight behind titles of reverence in the black music community. While casual observers dismissed the reaction as diva theatrics, those familiar with Aretha's life and work understood the deeper sting. She had fought relentlessly to carve out space for black women in the music industry, insisting that their contributions be recognized on their own terms. To her, a seemingly offhand coronation of another rising star felt like a rewriting of history, erasing the painstaking path she had forged. From that day forward, the relationship between Aretha and Beyoncé was marked by distance. They were never photographed together, never shared stages, and reportedly avoided each other at industry events. Private sources recalled instances where Aretha, in rare moments of candid conversation, described Beyoncé in a single icy line: a talented young lady who forgot protocol. Despite the tensions, Beyoncé continued to flourish, while Aretha's silent disapproval became a testament to her unwavering dedication to legacy, respect, and the rules of musical hierarchy. Eminem, not every rift on Aretha Franklin's list stemmed from direct insult or confrontation. Some were quieter, built from absence rather than aggression. One of the most perplexing for her involved Marshall Mathers, better known as Eminem, Detroit's prodigy who rose to global stardom in the early 2000s. To the world, he was the city's musical ambassador, a gritty, revolutionary voice that transformed hip-hop. To Aretha, he was a fellow Detroiter, and she expected, at the very least, a nod to the queen who had paved the way for every artist who had come before him. Decade after decade, Eminem climbed the charts, sold out arenas, and dominated cultural conversations. Yet despite his success, song after song, interview after interview, he never mentioned her influence, never sampled her work, never acknowledged the towering presence she represented in Detroit's musical DNA. For casual fans, this might have seemed like a minor oversight or simply a generational gap, but for Aretha it was far from trivial. She had fought to open doors for Detroit artists of every genre, carving a path in a city often overlooked by the wider industry. To see one of the city's brightest stars seemingly turn a blind eye felt like an intentional dismissal of her contributions. The frustration simmered quietly until it surfaced in private conversation. During a dinner attended by close associates, someone brought up Eminem's meteoric rise. Aretha reportedly exhaled slowly, a mixture of disappointment and incredulity etched on her face, before saying with sharp clarity, "He knows exactly who I am. He just chose not to honor it." The remark, simple in words but heavy in meaning, encapsulated decades of expectation and pride in her legacy. Her disapproval didn't end with private sighs. In interviews, when her relationship, or lack thereof, with Eminem was discussed, her tone was unmistakable. Asked about his music, she offered a one-word dismissal: noise. It was concise, cutting, and final, an unambiguous statement of disinterest and disapproval. For Aretha, it wasn't personal animosity as much as principle. Recognition and respect mattered, particularly from those who shared the same roots and had benefited, knowingly or not, from her trailblazing path. Ray Charles. In the mid-1970s, anticipation was at a fever pitch for a televised duet between two giants of American music, Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles. Networks promoted it as a historic event, a once-in-a-generation pairing that would blend soul, gospel, and rhythm into an unforgettable performance. Behind the scenes, the rehearsal room was filled with laughter, mutual respect, and a playful energy. Ray, with his infectious charisma, and Aretha, with her unmatched vocal control, improvised freely, teasing each other with flourishes and alternate phrasing. It seemed at first that the stars had aligned perfectly, but when the cameras began rolling, everything changed. Ray, ever the mercurial showman, suddenly abandoned the agreed-upon arrangement. He elongated certain phrases, shifted the rhythm, and launched into unexpected ad-libs that diverged from the carefully rehearsed structure. To the viewing audience, the performance appeared spontaneous and electrifying, a masterclass in improvisation. To Aretha, however, it felt like a betrayal. She struggled to adapt in real time, her trademark precision thrown off balance by Ray's unpredictability. Each improvised note from him was a challenge, forcing her to make split-second adjustments that left the performance teetering on the edge of chaos. Backstage, the tension crystallized. Ray, ever quick with a quip, reportedly chuckled to producers, "She's good, just slow to react." That single comment cut deeply. For Aretha, the public undermining overshadowed any artistic spontaneity. She had stepped into the spotlight with trust, professionalism, and a willingness to collaborate, and in a matter of minutes it seemed that trust had been exploited for theatrical effect. Her reaction was immediate and decisive. She refused to work with Ray again in any capacity. The professional rift was absolute. In the years that followed, whenever friends or journalists brought up the incident, Aretha's tone was measured but biting. "He wanted a solo," she explained with her characteristic clarity, "and used me as the punchline." That brief but explosive moment on live television became emblematic of a wider truth in her career. Aretha Franklin demanded respect, not just applause. She had built her legacy on discipline, precision, and integrity, and she would not allow even the most celebrated musician to overshadow or manipulate her artistry. What do you think about these 7 names that Aretha Franklin never wanted to mention? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.